Just down to sorry, kids at Paul. Yes, yeah. Oh, yeah, it was good.
Did you have sex with the people drink?
We did. We stopped at a pub halfway round though, rather than use the cafe. You know, I mean, the cafe didn't come amazing, but
Underfoot. Yeah, underfoot is pretty. We haven't.
just checking you're not tripping me up again.
Good morning, everybody. I was going to say a very, very warm welcome, a warmish welcome. And yeah, just looking at some dates actually, one notice, some dates. If you haven't got the news sheet, then grab a copy because it's got some key ones for the diary. Did you know Advent starts soon? This year, we're not doing films. For the last couple of years, we have been showing Christmas films and then reflecting on them. We're going a little bit highbrow this year. Dickensian. In fact, only a little taste of. We're going to. Did you know that there were 4 other Christmas novels by Dickens? And there's some great little themes. So we're going to kind of like touch on them a little bit. They're going to come into the Christmas time. I'll say more about it nearer the time. But the one around Christmas to get in your diaries if you haven't already, the Christmas Day service at 10:30, a short one. And also Carols by Lights Again, which is on the 22nd of December. And And just to let you know as well, we're doing the matchstick testimonies for the first Sunday in the new year. So again, all in here. If you don't get that by email and you're a regular and you'd like to have a chat with one of the deacons, have a chat with Helen, and we'll let you know how we can do that as well. An idea, we used to do Christmas boxes. We don't do them as a church anymore for families, children and so on, but one of the things we have sometimes encouraged people to think about is the Salvation Army. They collect toys and gifts and presents for children, and again you can find more information in the news sheet, but it's the local Salvation Army if you would like to do that before the Christmas period, and then they distribute them to people who will really appreciate them. Another quick notice, again we don't do guilt to this church, so if you've forgotten or if you do forget, don't worry about it. There's recyclable coffee cups for after the service. But we often encourage people to get one of these reusable coffee cups and bring them along. Hopefully our ongoing bit and bigger bit over the years to look after our wonderful environment. One of the things that's been happening over the last few months, maybe the last couple of years, is that people have been hearing about the church from different areas outside of Worthing and are interested in what's going on and come to visit us for one or two services. Some have said they want to come every month or so. And just to recognise that, and if they're watching or if they do come along again, it's a delight. And if people join us for a long time, for a season, again, there's no pressure. We don't grab onto people and hold on to people. But if that's you, then you're very welcome to join us for a season, however long that might be. This morning, in our series that we've been doing for a number of months, we're different, we're the same, looking at so many different topics. I'm so enjoying this. It's been such an insight personally, and listening to people where these topics, more than topics, but these topics touch people's lives personally, and they are happy to come and be interviewed, happy-ish to come and be interviewed about them during the service. And today we are looking at the ageing process, relevant for all of us, the ageing process. One of the books that I've been reading, and feel free to borrow this and then bring it back and pass it on after the service, it's The Inner Work of Age, Shifting from Role to Soul. Shifting from Role to Soul. I'll say more about it and return to that later, but a really good book, and feel free to borrow that, whatever age you are, because, yeah, as I say, it comes to all of us, it's coming to all of us. And during the service, the first part, I've got two very willing volunteers, or brave volunteers, to come and share some of their thoughts about that personally for them as well. I'm going to ask Tony now to read from Isaiah 46.
Isaiah 46, verse 4, 4 pairs of eyes. Even to your old age and grey hairs, I am He. I am He who will sustain you. I have made you, and I will carry you. I will sustain you, and I will rescue you.
Please stand in your record.
Lord, I come before your throne of grace. I find rest in your presence and fullness of joy. In worship and wonder I behold your face, singing, what a faithful God have I. What a faithful God have I. What a faithful God. What a faithful God have I. Faithful in every way. Lord of mercy, you have heard Through the storm, you're the beacon, my song in the night. In the shelter of your wings, hear my heart's reply, singing, what a faithful God have I. What a faithful God have I. What a faithful what a faithful God have I, faithful in every way. Lord, O sovereign, granting peace from heaven, let me comfort those who suffer with the comfort you have given. I will tell your great love for as long as I live, singing, what a faithful God have I. What a faithful God have I. What a faithful God. What a faithful God have I, faithful in every way. What a faithful God have I. What a faithful God. What a faithful God have I, faithful in every way.
Please have a seat. Often happens when people are looking forward to a particular topic coming up and they're unable to be with us today. There are a number of people, I'm not going to define them as elderly, but they're ageing like me, and some of this is particularly relevant, and they're struggling with health and mobility. So yeah, continue to notice as you do those who are missing, and where you feel prompted to give them a call, or keep them in your prayers as well. And going to ask Hilary Duffield, I'd say Hilary Duffield because I didn't want to scare any other Hilarys here today, to come forward and have a chat with me at the front. Let's show our love as well. As always, thank you so much for doing this, and even though you've done it before, I want to acknowledge a new topic, and it does take courage and faith to come up and do this. So the first question really, for you, it's a personal thing. What have been the joys, the things that you have liked about the ageing process?
First of all, I'd like to identify with the fact that I do not identify with being old, so despite the evidence of rather a lot of birthday cards that had a big fat 80 on them, that's definitely not me. So what do I enjoy?
Yeah, what do you enjoy?
Not having to get up at stupid o'clock in the morning to get kids up or go to work, that's lovely. Being able to sit in the chair all day if I want to and read a book and not feel guilty. What else? Grandchildren, they're a great joy when you are a lot older. Yeah, lots of things really. I've probably got a little crib sheet here because, you know, don't manage to remember things, but that'll do.
And some of the challenges, and I don't know, what age that some of the challenges came, but what about some of the challenges of all of that as well, if you don't mind sharing some of them?
Oh, well, do you know, honestly, I am so very fortunate, and I recognise that I have no real mobility issues or health issues. So for other people it's completely different. You know, my challenges are silly little things like not getting up on this seat quite so easily, slight memory losses. Oh, could you remind me what your name is? Not being able to get up when you've been at the bottom of Tesco's shelf. You know, you need something to leave you up. Silly things like that. Otherwise, it's very difficult to think of anything. Obviously, I can't climb the mountains that I used to, but I can still climb considerable heights, which is great. It's, to me, any season that you are in can be a good one, obviously, if you have good health. Which, yes, I'm ever grateful. As Anthony will say, it's in your gene bank. Yeah. Let me just have a little look in case I've forgotten anything significant. Oh, yes. Yeah, well, there you are, you see. And also, you acquire lots of friends down through the years, and as you get older, they become more and more important to you. Also, a lot of random knowledge that you pick up. That's great. It means that I can sometimes answer 2 questions on University Challenge. And I'm very grateful for being able to sort of remember things, and also very happy to impart my knowledge with anybody who wants it.
In terms of faith, how you see God, Christianity, church, whatever, however you describe it, how has that developed over the years, if at all?
Oh, sure, it's developed massively from when I was, you know, a very small person first going to church, when everything was cut and dried. You might not have liked some of the things that you read or you were taught, but you didn't question it, or if you did, you kept it to yourself. But the ability to say, actually, I really can't take that, I just don't believe that is right, and to be able to acknowledge to myself that that's how I feel, and to know that probably you are able to question, because, you know, some things just literally don't stack up. They just don't. And so, you know, to be in denial and just say, oh, well, you know, God knows I don't understand, but to be able to acknowledge honestly that actually I can't go along with that, like Mike saying you don't believe in hell, and you think, right, that's a big one. Yeah, I can go along with that too. So it has changed massively, and also the way that we now are accepting with so much diversity. This church has always been a great place for me, but where it is now is just off the chart, really. Yeah, absolutely massive changes, as my granddaughter would say.
I know some people, and I have as well, when something I have been taught or thought, when that gets challenged and I start to challenge it, it can feel a bit daunting, a bit scary. Have you experienced that as well?
Yes, I think so, because when you pull the rug out from some particular thing that you've always held on to, you think, oh, right, does that mean that everything's, you know, going haywire as well? But no, that isn't the case. I think sometimes you get to the point where you think, what is the last thing that I cannot say I believe in? You know what I mean? You can say, well, I don't believe in this, I don't believe in that, but the bottom line to say, well, actually, I cannot say I don't believe in God. So when you get to that point, then you can start building up again in a much healthier way.
And with that in mind, maybe 1 or 2 things that are still there. What do you believe? Where are you at with that?
What do I believe? Oh, wow. You didn't ask me that question. What do I believe?
Just in a couple of words.
Yeah, I just believe that God is in essence love. He is not in essence hate. And so any depiction of him that appears to show that just can't be right. That would be the biggest thing, I think.
And the last question that comes to mind, and it's a hard one to answer in terms of because you know your humility, I'm honest, but today we're looking at the ageing process and thinking about how our character has developed or not. So your character, who you are, what you're like, has that changed over the years?
I don't think it's going to change. Has changed at all. But I'm going to start today. No, it isn't easy to judge your own chart because there's other people who really see how you have changed, whether you've become more patient, more understanding, kinder, all those sort of things. I like to think that I'm more patient. I like to think I feel more disposed to people who I would have thought were different. But honestly, it's other people who see whether you're still a loose cannon or scary or all the things that have been said about me in the past. I'm still here and still keeping on and hopefully having the rough edges smoothed off as each day goes, being ready to change, yeah.
Wonderful.
And don't keep asking me to do this.
Would I? Can we show our love again? Steve, do you mind joining? Let's show Steve our love and encouragement. It's interesting, Steve. I hope you don't mind me saying this, but one or two people I said, Steve, I'm going to ask Steve to come up, and they thought, well, Steve's very confident. Steve's, that'd be easy for Steve. How do you feel coming forward to be interviewed?
Hold on. I feel worried. I feel embarrassed. No, delighted to be here and speaking-ish. Yeah.
That's it. Thank you. And thanks for that honesty. We love that honesty. So the same kind of questions, and might throw in an odd one as well. But for you, the joys of ageing.
I thought about this one long and hard. I decided there weren't any. Do I need to say any more? Hopeless. Yeah.
Do you mind saying? So we're going to come to the challenges.
Oh, right.
But there might not be. Are there one or two things that you think, I liked that about getting a bit older. I've enjoyed that.
I suppose people don't expect so much from me as they used to, thinking. I enjoy singing, but I don't feel the pressure anymore. I love my family so much, and what they do is just incredible. I think one of the things I would like to say is that getting older is great, but it's not in what you've got or what you've done or where you've been. It's who you're with, who you've brought up, who you've loved. It's the people that matter for me. Yeah.
It's interesting. Steve said that I'm going to be saying something like that for about half an hour later, and I think that's what you're going to remember. That's what you're going to remember. So you've indicated visually. Do you mind saying a little bit about the challenges? Because you know how helpful it can be for people who have been through similar or different challenges or might do. So for you, what about some of those challenges and how have you coped with them?
physical challenges are usually solved by the NHS in some way or other. And I've been so blessed wherever people have been suffering with getting to hospital or getting appointments or getting doctor's interviews. I've never had trouble with it. Don't ask me why, but maybe somebody's looking after me. What was the rest of it, Mike?
I mean, how have you coped? You mentioned knees and
Yeah.
hearing and teeth. I mean, what effect has it had on you, honestly, and how have you coped?
Yeah, well, I think that the knees, for instance, have meant that this body is not what it was. I used to play a lot of football, table tennis, cricket. I'd be quite good at it. But these days, cricket's suffering a bit. Football, not even worse, maybe. And as for table tennis, I still love it, but can't play it now. So, yeah, I mean, Val, my good lady, when we were talking about this in bed, would you believe, she said to me, if you're talking about wine, as this was introduced, something about vinegar or fine wine, said if it's red wine, you're definitely full-bodied. I thought, that's my wife. The other thing we said, I came up with was she said, no, I said, Mike was to talk about fine wine. So I felt more like a house wine as opposed to sort of fine wine. And house wine, she said, yes, well, you got the swine bit right. That's not nice, but house wine. How clever is that, dear?
Humour in the marriage, I think that helps. And in terms of, because I know you went to, I think you went to a faith-based school or in the choir and stuff like that. How you saw God, if you did when you were a little boy, teenager, 20, 30 something, 40 something, how has your image of God, how you see God, how has that changed over the years?
Yeah, I'd never had any trouble with believing or accepting as a youngster. It all came very, very naturally. It may have been something to do with school. But it's strange that every time I went to a religious meeting of some sort, I would get up in front and walk up for conversion. I was a serial convertee all the time. I would get up and either be blessed or be converted. As far as everybody else knew, it was my first time. But that's just the way I was affected every time by a call, if you like. Yeah, was there anything more to that question, Mike?
Well, how do you, the way you see God and God's character, has that changed over the years or stayed the same?
I think nowadays, and you've got a lot to blame to take for this, I see God more as more loving, more accepting. I think I was one of these who saw the big beneficent father figure, but now he's so accepting of everybody. This church is a great example of where you can move to within the boundaries of Christianity, of God. God is love, and if he is, he loves everybody, not just me. I'm lucky that he does love me, considering how I've been in the past, and still am at times. Yeah.
And you don't have to give specific examples, but if you want, you don't want to. But that question I asked Hilary, that sometimes how you've been taught in the past, sometimes how Scripture has been taught, the Bible has been taught, the character of God, how that's been described. When that has been challenged over the years, or questioned, either from within or elsewhere, has that felt a bit like a slippery slope or a bit scary at times as well?
My Mike actually knows the answer to this one. It's sort of a leading question. It's no secret for the people who know me well that I was a very disciplined, religious, and going by strictly by the Bible's words, which, as I saw them, or as they were given to me. Whereas I think now, although I'm still listening to all that God tells me, I've moved to where I feel that God, if He made people, made everybody, He made them all in His own image, and accepts and loves them all. And this is something I didn't. I did not love everybody because I thought that was the wrong thing to do. But boy, have I changed on that one.
I don't want to flatter you or embarrass you publicly, but I just want to say something that I've said a lot to you, or on occasion to you. I've said a lot to Kate and to other people in the church, is that Steve has been one of the examples I will always remember as somebody who, when new ideas, and we worked on the leadership team together, when new ideas came, they might not resonate straight away with Steve, but genuinely, Steve's openness, open-mindedness to stay with discomfort, and actually this is precious. I know you never thought about it, well, but to stay with the church and work through this as community together, and honestly, things like humility and that, Kate knows how touched I am, because I often ramble on about it. But thank you. With that in mind, how has your character changed, do you think, over the years? Who you are?
It's a difficult one, because I'm not one for introspection, really. I don't examine myself. I've certainly, the way I am Christian-wise, has changed a lot. And I feel like it's changed in the right way. Yeah. I just want to say a thing about friends as well, which it came to me when I was fiddling. Friends are so important. I've had some great friends in this church. Ones I've sung with, worshipped with, loved very much. And friends outside the church, and they're equally important because we are all important in God's eyes. Family, fantastic. Grandchildren, you mentioned earlier, but I don't want to go without saying so myself. Fantastic. You sort of start to live almost another life. And your own kids as well. You see them developing as people and laying down the law to their family. Oh, don't be so harsh. Easy. Yeah. And my wife. Where would I be without her? All right, dear. You said to say that. Asleep. I do spend a lot of my time snoozing. Yeah.
I think that's a good place to spend it, don't you? And although he turned it into humour in the end, because he meant it, didn't he? I just got that. I just got to talk about humour. Can we show our love to Steve? And have the freedom to stand or remain seated for this next song.
The Lord's my shepherd, I'll not want. He makes me lie in pastures green. He leads me by the still, still waters. His goodness restores my guides my ways in righteousness, and He anoints my head with oil, and my cup it overflows with joy. I feast on His pure light, and I will trust in You alone, and I will trust in You alone, for Your endless mercy follows me. Your goodness will lead me home, and though I walk the darkest path, I will not fear the evil one, for You are with me, and Your rod and staff are the comfort I need to know. And I will trust in You alone, and I will trust in You alone, for Your endless mercy follows me. Your goodness will lead me home, for Your endless mercy follows me. Your goodness will lead me home.
Have a seat.
Let us pray. Prayer is entitled Genuflecting Life. You cannot be contained in words or books or buildings. Whoever thought you would? We experience Your presence all the time, mostly without knowing it. In the wind, caressing our face, in a novel we can't put down, in the licked approval of a friendly dog, in a painting we just have to hang on the wall, in the company of loved ones so easily overlooked. Help us to learn the sacred art of pausing and bowing, of genuflecting the heart, of setting aside for a while the pressing and the urgent to make room for the essential. Those who can no longer pause to wonder and stand in rapt awe are as good as dead, said wise old Mr. Einstein, and he should know. I think it is through pausing that we stop hiding from life, stop running, and begin living, and then realize that we were looking for You full in the face all along without knowing. Amen.
If you feel comfortable, don't feel you have to, but if you feel comfortable, we're going to pause for a moment, and you might want to close your eyes if you feel comfortable. And the question is, whether you believe in God or not, actually, the question is, what might God be saying to you this morning, this day, and in this silence? Lord, we lift all of that up to you, alongside the things in our lives we might not even be able to put into words. We lift up friends and family, if we have friends and family, church family, those who aren't here this morning through no choice but through their challenges. We continue to lift up the local area to you. Pray that people find hope, encouragement, listening ears, practical things that they need, that more children do have gifts at Christmas in circumstances where they might not have. As we think about the blue and the yellow lights still at the back of the church on the platform, we still long for the day when we can turn that off, when there has been a just end to the war in Ukraine. And our heart goes out to all the countries and regions that came to mind and were spoken out loud last Sunday. We continue to pray for that peace. And we ask all of this, Jesus, in your name. Amen. I'm going to ask Alex to come forward now and read from Matthew 16.
From that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hand of the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and on the third day be raised to life. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. "Never, Lord," he said. "This shall never happen to you." Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." Then Jesus said to his disciples, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? For the Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory with his angels, and then he will reward each person according to what they have done. Truly, I tell you, some who are standing here will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom."
Thank you. Actually, very relevant for last week, because still the disciples, still many of the people in Israel were wanting a Messiah who was violent, who could actually come and kick the Romans out, and Jesus was teaching them. Isn't it hard learning all the time that we're getting it wrong and we haven't seen it very clearly? But Peter's saying, no, you can't go to suffer, you can't go to die, that's not the plan. And again, having to learn, well, actually, this is who God is. And watch and learn and listen to Jesus as the Father is soon to speak out on the mountain when Jesus appears in glory and the Father speaks. And Peter still gets it wrong again, but hey, that's about all of our journey. I've had a theory for years, for 20, 30 years, and partly due to my social work background, counselling background, and actually knowing some older people in my life, but I've had a theory that some people, as they get older, as they age, some seem to get more and more loose with their tongues, more bitter, more angry, more venomous, more nasty. And one of my theories is actually what's happening is they're not changing into that. That's been inside all along. but perhaps they're less clever at covering it up, less clever at masking it. And this is a challenge to all of us. and likewise, I think of people who are older and they show not perfection, but wisdom, humility, patience, acceptance of other people. And I think what is being revealed is that which is inside, that which has been developing with them over many, many years. The title for today is actually from what a Pope said a number of years ago, Aeging like a fine wine. Are you aging like a fine wine? Or turning to vinegar? My mum used to say to me, and an often said thing, don't get old, Mike, don't get old. And my reply would be, Mum, it's better than the alternative. And then with our humour between us, I'd say, or is it? No, we have a faith perspective as well. We have no choice about the inevitability of growing old, but we do have a choice about how we grow old. I don't want to be, this is serious actually, I don't want to be a grumpy old man who becomes more pedantic. I'm not looking at Kate when I say all this. Focused on minutiae. I know a number of men in my life before I came here who seemed to get like this. And also harping on about the good old days when things were better back then. I want to keep on growing until the day I breathe my last breath. I have a little picture of me here.
That's cool.
And yes, I did use an aging app, okay? I did use an aging app. We can move off it now. It's tempting to focus as we age on how we look. And the body is important. Don't fall for that mistaught Christian concept, or not a Christian mistaught concept that the body's not important. And yes, it's good to try and do what we can to stay healthy, to stay fit, to exercise. We all know about that, and that really is key. But today we're going to focus on what's on the inside. Sometimes it's easier to think, how do I look today? Am I still looking young? And good questions, but actually what's going on in the inside? Our character. Jesus, in his challenging, brilliant words, would talk about you Pharisees. You're like whitewashed tombs. The tombs I've seen around Jerusalem, where they're lovely and white, where there's bones on the inside. They're dead on the inside. Jesus spoke about, it's not all about the cup and the bowl looking clean on the outside. It's what's on the inside that's important. So, is character the core stuff on the inside deepening for you? Are you developing on the inside? Or are we becoming or staying selfish, bitter, sour like vinegar, lifeless compared to what the fullness of life might look like? Listen to Jesus' words again. Whoever wants to be my disciple, my follower, learn from me, must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me will find it. Greek word used here, psyche, which can be translated life or soul. And it's often preached, this passage, you've probably heard it, is often preached in terms of losing the soul after death if you're not saved. What's going to happen one day? When Jesus returns, are you going to lose your soul? I happen to believe the soul is indestructible. It's the immortal diamond Richard Raw, Franciscan monk, talks about, but that's another story. I think this passage is more about life now, becoming more like Jesus now, following his example in this life. More other-centred. And I think Jesus teaches that it's a daily choice over a lifetime. And it never ends, this challenge, this invitation. Sadly, I think some never start this process, even if they were born into church and go to church all their lives. And And I find that really sad. I've always felt that really sad. I don't know what's really going on inside people's hearts, but where I've guessed it, I found that sad. As though some people maybe are waiting to take this invitation when they retire, when they have more time, then I can focus on that kind of stuff. And I think, in all honesty, many people still fall for the misunderstanding that that's going to happen one day, my transformation, when Jesus returns at the second coming, so I can leave it all till then. And in Philippians, we are told that Christ, God, will complete this process, but it doesn't mean so we leave it all to God. We often misunderstand Jesus' words. And we often make them all about his second coming. So many parts of Scripture, I think, are misunderstood. About the afterlife. When Jesus is talking, and actually the Jewish listeners would have got this better than us, Jesus is talking about kingdom living now. Today's reading, actually, I think is more about his crucifixion and resurrection, and not his second coming. About him coming back from that, from the dead. It's also about his transfiguration on this mountain, and he goes up with Peter, James and John, and they see this glorious transfiguration of Jesus. Some of you, before you die, will see some of this. That's what I think Jesus is getting at. It's less about losing our life, our soul, when we die, and more about missing out on life now. Missing the point of life. And it's so easy to do. I know it's so easy to do, miss the point of life. And by grasping onto the worldly things, and they're not bad by any means, but grasping onto them as though that is going to give us the answers and help us to lead a fulfilling life. Because they seem to promise life. They really do seem, all the glitters, they do seem to promise life. But if we do that without the other stuff, life is empty, lifeless, and can actually end up robbing us of life. Remember that translation of the word seeking, life or soul? Some Bible translations have translated it in a different way. That it means actually your true self. Don't forfeit your true self. Don't lose yourself. In the Message translation, it says this: anyone who intends to come with me has to let me lead. You're not in the driver's seat, I am. Don't run from suffering, embrace it. Follow me and I'll show you how. Here we go. Self-sacrifice is the way, my way, to finding yourself. Your true self. What kind of deal is it to get everything you want but lose yourself? What could you ever trade for your soul? Losing yourself rather than finding your true self. Living this life, living the whole of life, isn't this tragic? Not as your true self that God made you to be, that wonderful essence, that immortal diamond that is in the depths of who you are. You were made in God's image. Not learning through following Jesus. Being so close to the rabbi that you get the dust covering you, as the followers of disciples used to want. They would be so close to their rabbi that they get all the dust covering them. To live out of this essence that we all have within us. Goodness, kindness, other-centeredness, love. It's there. It just gets covered up. And we end up living out of our false self. Our life's journey, if or as we follow, is to get in touch with that essence that God created. To die to the false self that has grown up and covered it for very good reasons, for fears and complexities of life and insecurities. Jesus says there's no point only gaining the worldly goodies, wealth, property, investments, mansions, fast cars, flash clothes, achievements, stuff, looking good, whilst remaining deep down selfish, bitter, unloving, self-centred, never uncovering what I believe is actually underneath all of that, your essence. That is what loss of life is about. It's about learning in life the reverse Copernicus. The reverse Copernicus. Copernicus was one of those who got into a lot of trouble for pointing out that most people misunderstood. They thought that everything revolved around the earth. They got it wrong. I think what happens with us is we think everything revolves around us. And it's learning that's not how we were made to be. Some thoughts, very briefly, about what ageing well might look like. And I'm preaching to myself this morning. They're relevant to all of us, whatever age we are. Firstly, maturing well, aging like a fine wine, doesn't just happen. Not like getting on a conveyor belt, just leaving it all to the conveyor belt. Job chapter 12, verse 12 says, "Wisdom belongs to the aged, and understanding to the old." For sure, but not everybody who is old. It doesn't just happen. It comes out of a conscious choice throughout our life to follow, to be open to God and goodness. It comes out of obedience. That sounds like a really heavy word, being obedient to Christ. My translation of that loosely is to follow the way of love that Jesus tells us to follow. And I love the phrase, obedience then is the death knell for our ego. When we are obedient to loving others as we love ourselves, that is what kills our ego, our self-centeredness. In churches and in life, we often talk about elders. What are elders? The people you listen to in church or in life. The people where you would follow their example. They've got something, they've got wisdom. The religious ones, maybe. Those who know a lot. Those who are good with Christianese, Christian words and phrases. The ones who are prim and proper. They seem very certain about everything. Oh, I think they must know a lot. They quote a lot of verses. The elders in a church are those with character, humility, openness. Some of you in the past, and I've loved this over the 16 years, have assumed it's other people. They're the elders. In past churches, out there or wherever in here as well, they're the elders. But actually, what I've realised is, no, it's you. Do you think it is to do with all those other characteristics, or you're used to? But now you recognise it, and I recognise it in many of you, and some of you watching here this morning online. And the reason it's in you is because you've worked at it. I've seen you working at it, with God and as part of this community, and people outside of the church as well. The lovely thing is, and the challenge is, if we want to be elders, we model this to young people whether we like it or not. They look, they see what we're like. Psalm 71 says, "Even when I am old and grey, do not forsake me, my God, till I declare your power to the next generation, your mighty acts to all who are to come." Again, it sounds more grand than it is. Passing on something of this to younger people. It's most effective in church and in life when we're walking the talk, not just preaching. In the book, it says, when we shift from unconscious senior, an older person who doesn't really think much about all of this, living in denial, to the conscious elder. Secondly, cover your ears up if you don't want to hear this. Suffering is part of the maturing process. It is. Jesus was called to suffer. No, you're not going to suffer. Jesus was called to suffer. In 2 Corinthians, and I thought about this when we were chatting, Steve, it says, chapter 4, though outwardly we are wearing out, inwardly we are renewed day by day. Our suffering is light and temporary, and is producing for us an eternal glory that is greater than anything we can imagine. To some extent, the glory, the character of God growing within us by the Spirit of God. Not automatic if we're open to God. Aging well is not automatic, far from it. It is conscious work. And the old cliche is very true. With our suffering, we can either get better or bitter. At the beginning of this book, it says it highlights the unconscious inner obstacles that block our capacity to fulfill the extraordinary possibilities of later life. There are many of them. And also, perhaps even more challenging, says that death of loved ones. Death of loved ones, loss, suffering are sometimes divine messengers. Not caused by God, but actually God can speak through. It is sometimes our wounds and our suffering that prove key to the death of our ego. Die to self, death of ego. If we're open to God, then sometimes that is the very place where the Spirit can bring about that transformation. And it's hard. Thirdly, a movement from role to soul. A movement from role to soul. Siki. Our identity and self-worth, and this is part of life. We don't need to feel guilty about it. It's often tied up with what we do and how others see us. It's natural. But ageing is an opportunity, and you and I know not everybody takes this opportunity, to challenge this and focus more on character, who we are, to discover who we are and develop who we are, to care less about our image. Our image is part of that worldly stuff, our ego-created stuff that we think is going to cause us happiness. I love this sentence in the book. A shift in identity from the active roles that we have fulfilled during our lives to something deeper, something connected to a spiritual essence that has inherent value and does not depend on our productivity, accomplishments, or self-image. Sounds like freedom, sounds like peace. Church roles are interesting. Roles that we might have in church or through the church. I think there can be a massive tendency to hold on to a role when we're called to let go of it, in that tragic Biden-like way, holding on to something, and look at the chaos that is coming out of perhaps that, not blaming him, but out of that. Including ministers who never retire. I said to Kate, I am not going, maybe for good reason, and I'm not judging them, but I am not going to be one of those ministers who, when I retire, I'm going to be preaching at churches every week. I think sometimes that can be because people can't let go of their role. This doesn't mean stop serving as we get older. Far from it. Stop contributing because you've done all you can contribute. Nothing like that. It just means it might be in a different way. Let me quote the Richard Rohr Franciscan monk again. This shadow work, as he calls it, the work of moving beyond identification with our roles and false personas. Aren't they clever? Aren't they good at this? Aren't they good at that? He says, I'm sorry to report that shadowboxing, dealing with some of that stuff, continues until the end of our life. The only difference being that we're no longer surprised by our surprises, or so totally humiliated by our humiliations. As we age, we come to expect various forms of half-heartedness, deceit, vanity, or illusion from ourselves. The stuff that's actually in there. But now we can see through them, which destroys most of their game and power. Finally and fourthly, we touched on it with the interviews. Ageing can be an opportunity to reimagine our beliefs. Again, think of Peter the disciple, always being invited to learn afresh. You got it wrong, Peter, it's like that. No, it can't be. Get behind me, Satan. He wasn't saying Satan was there and Peter was Satan. It was just this false understanding. Get behind me. Follow the way of God. Listen to me and my example. That is before us all the time. Some people shut down, they lock down their beliefs, and that's going to do them till the end. They're missing out on a wonderful, beautiful opportunity. Questioning can bring life to our faith. And how challenging and humiliating is this? It's sometimes about having a more childlike belief. I want to be clever. I want to be able to... It's about actually coming down a little bit and having a childlike belief. Embracing mystery and acknowledging, actually, I'm not that certain about that anymore. Draw this together. Aging like a fine wine, are you? Aging, do you want to age like a fine wine or a common wine? Or turning to vinegar? Worthing Baptist Church. There is that ongoing invitation for all of us to be who we are here and to discover who we are. What an exciting journey that is. Especially when you believe deep down you are good. Not a load of rubbish. We have a load of rubbish within us, but actually your essence, your God-created essence, is tov, good. It takes courage. It takes trust. It takes vulnerability. It takes faith. And it is a choice. It's not about perfection. Sometimes actually in this journey we come to see our shadow stuff more, the stuff we don't really like about ourselves, and that's all part of it. Don't put it off. Talk to myself as well. But on the other hand, it's never too late. And there are unique struggles of aging that provide unique opportunities. Often stuff we wouldn't choose. There are treasures of late life. Can any of you feel comfortable? Can I invite you to close your eyes and listen in closing to these, the treasures of late life. Releasing the past so that it no longer controls how we feel or act now. Releasing our hurt, anger, resentment, and regret by using emotional repair to reframe relationships. Cultivating a genuine self-acceptance of who we are now, which liberates us from our inner critic and empowers us to feel and act with full authenticity. finding a broader and deeper view of our life stories, which reveals our soul's mission. Reclaiming our lost creativity and exploring its joyous value today. Creating a quieter mind which gives us space from negative emotions about ageing. Experiencing a deeper identity which offers freedom from our past roles and responsibilities. Discovering a revitalised energy that opens us up to play, beauty, and gratitude. Reconnecting with activism and service, which ends isolation and connects us to a kinship community. Choosing a spiritual practice that fits our stage of life and brings rewards to our mental health, brain health, and emotional health. Living with a renewed orientation towards the future that includes our evolutionary purpose and legacy. Ultimately feeling a sense of peace in the face of death. I'm going to have a soft ending to the service now and simply sing a couple of songs, 2 or 3 songs. There might be one on the video to watch as well in a bit. And in silence, you might want to sit at the front, you might want to come forward for anointing, which is a very symbolic act, a very childlike act, an act of faith. We don't have to understand it all. It's to do with health and wholeness and the blessing and grace of God and love. But if you need to leave or you want to go for a coffee, have that freedom as well. May the God of hope fill you in with all joy and peace as you trust in God, that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. Amen.